Tyler? Is that a black man eating lunch?
Officer Bradley Wilson said it loud.
Ain't he a nigger?
Packed Virginia diner, lunch hour. 12 customers froze, forks in the air. Wilson walked up behind him.
You hear me, boy? When a white man talks, you stop chewing.
The man swallowed, set his fork down.
Then talk, officer. I'm listening. Your kind eats on the floor. Get down there.
Wilson flipped the plate. Meatloaf splattered the linoleum.
Lick it up, boy. Every bite.
He never noticed the napkin beside the coffee cup, something rectangular underneath. In 90 seconds, Wilson would wish he'd never put on that uniform, never opened his mouth to that black man.
Rewind 90 seconds.
To understand what was under that napkin, you have to know who Marshall Langston was, and why a 54-year-old black man was sitting alone in a small Virginia diner on a Tuesday afternoon, wearing a pressed navy blazer, carrying a leather briefcase worth more than most of the trucks in the parking lot. Greenfield, Virginia. Population around 12,400. A bedroom town tucked between horse farms and old tobacco land, 90 minutes south of Washington, D.C., the kind of place where tourists call it charming, and the locals call it ours. 12:38 in the afternoon. Late September, but the heat hadn't quit. Humid enough that the diner windows sweated on the outside. Country radio drifted out of a speaker above the register, low and twangy. Sweet tea condensation pooled on chrome napkin holders. The lunch rush was thinning. 3 tables, a couple booths, and the long stainless steel counter that had been there since 1958. A silver Lexus rolled into the gravel lot, pulled in slow, parked clean between the lines. The man who stepped out was tall, mid-50s, salt at the temples, clean-shaven, pressed khakis, navy blazer over a white button-down, no tie. Worn leather briefcase in his right hand, the kind that's been carried through 20 courtrooms and refuses to die. He didn't rush. He paused at the diner door to hold it open for an elderly white woman walking out with her grandson. She thanked him. He nodded, soft, quiet, and let her go first. Then he stepped inside. The bell over the door chimed twice. May Sullivan looked up from the register. 60-something, hair pinned back, been waiting tables here since Nixon was president. She gave him the same look she gave everyone. Friendly, professional, no fuss. Coffee, hun? Please. And whatever the special is, she poured before he sat. He took the last stool at the counter, the one closest to the window. Slid the briefcase between his ankles, removed the blazer slow, folded it once, neat as a hospital corner, and laid it across his lap. He didn't open the newspaper right away. He just rested his hand on it, like it meant something. If you looked close, you'd notice things. On his shirt cuff, a small black cufflink with an embossed gold seal, too small to read from across the room. A leather card holder set on the counter beside his coffee. He covered it with a linen napkin without even thinking. Pure muscle memory. The newspaper was a Washington Post, folded careful at the front page. Only one word peeked above the fold. Confirmed. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. He pulled it out. Caller ID, Judge Whitmore. He silenced it, slipped it back. "Everything all right, hun?" May asked. "First day jitters can wait. I'll call her back after lunch." May smiled, not really understanding. She turned to ring up another table. At a booth across the room, 2 old-timers glanced up over their coffee. One muttered something to the other looked away. Not hostile, just noticing. The kind of noticing a black man gets used to, especially in a town where black faces don't sit at the counter very often. A teenage busboy hauling a tray of dirty dishes wouldn't make eye contact at all. Marshall didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't even seem to register it, because Marshall Langston had been in rooms 1,000 times harder than this one. He was here for one reason. His grandfather was born 10 miles down this same road, a black sharecropper's son who fought in the Pacific in World War II. He used to sit on a porch in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and tell 6-year-old Marshall about the day in 1962. The day he walked into this exact diner, sat at this exact counter, and got told to eat out back with the dogs. His grandfather died in 1998. Before he passed, he made his grandson promise one thing. Baby, when you get to be somebody, and you will, you go back. You sit where they wouldn't let me sit, and you order the meatloaf. That was the promise. Today was the day Marshall was finally allowed to keep it. He had 30 minutes before he needed to be back on the road. 28 of those minutes were not going to go the way he planned. The bell over the door chimed too loud. 2 cops walked in, hats on, sunglasses still down. The kind of entrance that says we own this room and everybody in it. Officer Bradley Wilson came first. Early 40s, thick neck, badge worn just a little too high on his chest. 8 years on the Greenfield force. 14 citizen complaints in his file, all of them quietly closed. His partner, Officer Tyler Anderson, 24 years old, peach fuzz mustache, walked 2 steps behind him like a duckling chasing its mother. A patrol cruiser sat outside, parked diagonal across 2 spaces, half blocking the front door. Engine still running, radio crackling. Wilson stopped in the middle of the diner and pulled his sunglasses down slow. He scanned the room the way a wolf scans a meadow. Tables, booths, counter. His gaze landed on the only black man in the building, and stayed. Anderson followed Wilson's eyes. Anderson's hand drifted to his belt. They walked over. May behind the counter felt it before it started. Her hand froze mid-pour. Coffee dripped from the pot onto the saucer. Wilson stopped beside Marshall's stool, planted both palms flat on the laminate, leaned in. "Afternoon, sir. We got a call. Suspicious individual in the area. Description matches you. Mind telling us what you're doing here?" Marshall didn't look up from his plate. "Having lunch, officer." "Yeah, I can see that. You got some ID? May I ask the nature of the investigation first?" Wilson's jaw tightened. He shot a sideways grin at Anderson. "Hear that? Lawyer talk. You a lawyer, boy?" The word boy landed in the diner like a dropped glass. May's hand twitched. The old-timers at the booth stopped chewing. The busboy stopped wiping the same spot on the same table. Marshall finally lifted his eyes. Calm, steady. The kind of calm that comes from a man who's been in this exact moment dozens of times in his life and has never, ever lost his composure. "I'd prefer, sir, Officer Wilson." The way he said it, soft, almost gentle, made Wilson straighten up. Anderson took half a step back. Neither of them had ever been spoken to like that by a black civilian, not with that much quiet authority. Wilson didn't like it, so Wilson doubled down. "You don't get to tell me what to prefer. Stand up, hands where I can see them." Marshall set down his coffee, wiped his mouth slow with a paper napkin, folded the napkin once, placed it next to his plate. Then he stood, palms open at chest height, fingers spread, the way a man stands when he's been trained for this exact scenario his entire adult life. Because he had. 26 years in the Army JAG Corps will teach you how to stand. 8 years as a federal prosecutor will teach you how to keep your voice steady. And 2 weeks ago, the United States Senate had taught him something else entirely. But Wilson didn't know any of that yet. Anderson stepped in close. "Spread 'em. Feet shoulder width. I'm gonna pat you down." Marshall didn't argue. He spread his feet, lifted his arms. Anderson ran his hands across the navy blazer. Rough, fast, sloppy. Down the slacks, around the ankles. He found the leather card holder on the counter, but it had slipped half under the linen napkin during the pat-down. Anderson's eyes passed right over it. "He's clean, Brad." Wilson grunted. "Yeah? Then why don't you sit your clean ass back down while we run your plate? Don't move." Marshall sat. Anderson stayed close, hand resting on his sidearm. Not gripping it, but close enough to send the message. Wilson stepped outside to the cruiser. The diner held its breath. May found her voice first. "Officer, this gentleman hasn't done anything. He's just having luck." "Ma'am," Anderson cut in, "this is a police matter. Keep pouring coffee." May's mouth shut. Her eyes filled. She turned away. The man in the Greenfield football booster's cap, 2 stools down, quietly slid his cell phone out of his pocket, held it below the counter, hit record. Anderson noticed the movement and shot him a look hot enough to melt steel. The phone went back in the pocket, but not all the way off. Anderson turned his attention to Marshall, decided to fill the silence. So what brings a guy like you to a place like this anyway? Lunch. Lunch, right. In a $1,000 suit, driving a Lexus, carrying a briefcase. Let me guess, you sell something? Something we should know about? I'm a public servant, officer. Anderson laughed. A what? You mean like a janitor? Something like that. Marshall didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't take the bait. May, hands shaking, set down the plate. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, a square of cornbread on the side. On the house, hun. I'll pay full price, ma'am, plus a generous tip. Please ring it up. She nodded, couldn't speak. Marshall picked up his fork. The bell chimed again. Wilson came back in. He was walking different now, slower, meaner. The kind of slow that comes when a cop has run a plate and gotten back exactly nothing. No warrants, no record, no excuse. Which, for a man like Wilson, was the worst possible outcome. Because now he had to either let this black man eat his lunch in peace or escalate. He chose to escalate. Plate's not coming back stolen, Wilson announced, loud enough for the whole diner. Doesn't mean you didn't borrow that fancy car from somebody. Or steal it. We've had a string of car thefts in this county, real bad ones. Marshall set the fork down, looked at him direct. Officer Wilson, am I being detained? You being smart with me? I'm asking a legal question. Am I being detained, or am I free to leave? Wilson hated that question. Every cop with something to hide hates that question. You being free to leave is up to me. And right now, you're being a real pain in my ass, son. So here's what's gonna happen. He leaned close enough that Marshall could smell the chewing tobacco wedged behind his lip. You're gonna finish your little lunch, real quick. And then you and that fancy briefcase are taking a ride with us down to the station so we can have a real conversation. Sound good, sir? He spat the word sir like it tasted bad. Marshall didn't flinch. I'd prefer to finish my meal in peace, officer, and I'd prefer to do it without further harassment. Harassment? Wilson grinned at Anderson. You hear that, Tyler? Now we're harassing him. That's gonna play real cute when I write up the report. He looked down at Marshall's plate, looked at the meatloaf, the mashed potatoes, the cornbread. Looked at Marshall. A slow smile spread across Wilson's face. The kind of smile that said, I just thought of something fun. Tyler, is that a black man eating lunch or a monkey who learned to hold a fork? Anderson laughed. Wilson stepped behind Marshall, tobacco breath on his neck. You hear me, boy? When a white man talks, you stop chewing. Marshall swallowed, set his fork down. Then talk, officer, I'm listening. Oh, the monkey learned English. What do you want, officer? Your black ass off my counter. Your kind eats on the floor. Get down there. Marshall didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at the plate. And in that 1 second of silence, that 1 second before Wilson's finger hooked under the rim, Marshall Langston made a decision. He could end this right now. One word, one flip of the napkin. 2 cops on the ground in handcuffs by 1 p.m. Easy. Or he could let them keep going. Let them say every word they were about to say. Let them do every ugly thing they were about to do. In front of 12 witnesses. In front of 2 phones already recording from under tables. In front of May, who was about to become the most important witness in the most important civil rights case Greenfield, Virginia had seen in 40 years. He could let them dig their own grave, and then bury them in it. He chose to let them dig. Wilson hooked the plate. Lick it up, boy. Every bite. The meatloaf hit the linoleum with a wet, ugly crack. Gravy splattered both his boots. The cornbread bounced twice and rolled under the next stool. And somewhere in the back, the man in the booster's cap quietly hit record again. This time he didn't put the phone away. The plate hit the floor and the diner went so quiet you could hear the radio still playing a sad country song nobody was listening to. Gravy crawled across the linoleum in slow brown streaks. The meatloaf sat at Marshall's feet in 3 broken chunks. A green bean stuck to the toe of